let me just say, I had some trouble in the beginning finding opinions that I had about the Legend of Zelda franchise that would be deemed unpopular. But once I found one, the others started to kind of roll in, so yay, here we go. Now, I have already talked about unpopular opinions concerning Marvel with a completely separate video for Ragnarok itself, and I've talked about Disney unpopular opinions. But today, I'm talking about unpopular opinions that I have about a most beloved franchise, the Legend of Zelda gaming series. If you are unfamiliar with my unpopular opinions videos, I have links to them in the description below. Also, when I make these videos, I use primarily the second definition of opinion, which is an opinion that is merely a matter of taste or preference, which is to say, I like A more than B. I don't really use the first definition of opinion, which can be described as I think A is better than B. You get the point. I stick with just personal taste or preference. And with that, let's jump in. I don't think that Ocarina of Time on the N64 was as big of a game changer as everyone hypes it up to be. Now let me be clear, I do know that it was a game changer, but, and I have a completely separate video on this, there are certain elements of the game that have been praised for years as being so original that it did not do or start. Features that ought to be credited to its predecessor on the Super Nintendo, A Link to the Past. Now that is not an opinion video, that is a fact video, which you can click here to see, or wait later and click the link in the description, but yeah. But anyway, talking about opinions, I think that there's a decent portion of the hype that comes not from the actual game, but the fact that it was the first 3D Zelda game. And that's understandable. Now, can I prove this? No, and why would I try? It's not that big of a deal, it's just a thought that I've had on it, and it's an opinion I have, because again, I can't prove this. And it really depends on who you're talking to. And Ocarina of Time is still in my top 5 for favorite Zelda games, so I mean no disrespect towards the game, it's one of my favorites. It was my first Zelda game. Just a thought and opinion I have. It was a little bit overhyped. It was justly hyped, but some of it, just a little too much, you know. We'll leave it at that. But again, for facts, see the link to my video in the description. I love and somewhat prefer linear games. This one has so many caveats to it that I will only put a couple out there. The first is that yes, I love Breath of the Wild, which was not linear in the slightest. In fact, it's still competing with Wind Waker for my favorite Zelda game of all time. And the other is I love games like Animal Crossing, which have no goal or direction whatsoever. You just kind of go with it. So those are my two main caveats to this. Look, if you've watched my live streams, then you are well aware of how bad I am at video games. As much as I try and as much as I do love them, I'm not good at playing them. And while I loved getting to explore in Breath of the Wild, and other Zelda games too, but especially Breath of the Wild, sometimes I just want to be told what to do. I guess it's just how my brain functions, I don't know. I mean, I was that kid that once YouTube became a thing, I was always looking up YouTube videos to figure out how to defeat a boss, because before I even walked into that room to defeat the boss, I would just get so anxious, I needed to know exactly what to do. And sometimes I use that even for mini bosses, or heck, even whole dungeons. I love puzzles as much as the next person, even more so than the next person probably, but when the entire dungeon is a puzzle, looking at you, Stone Tower Temple, it's too overwhelming. I know, that sounds really pathetic, but whatever. I just had this really big fear of dying in a video game, which is odd because I don't have a fear of dying in real life. There's actually a really funny story in that. Another day, another time. I love the Legend of Zelda lore. This one can only really be considered unpopular if you're taking into account or surveying the entirety of like everyone who plays a Zelda game, even if just casually or 1 or 2 games. Not just hardcore Zelda gamers. I mean, most casual players who've only ever played 1 or 2 Zelda games aren't really going to be watching a video like this anyway. Some might, but most probably wouldn't. So that's why this might not seem as unpopular as you think. While it seems like a lot of us here, like on YouTube, love the lore, most casual Zelda gamers, kind of like my brother, couldn't care less about stuff outside of the actual game. They just want a good game to play once or twice and be done with it. Don't talk to them about timelines, like, ugh, they will just shut you off and tune you out everything. I, on the other hand, find this stuff super fascinating, obviously. I talk about it on here, and I just about screamed when I found out about Hyrule Historia for the first time all those years ago. So in the world of YouTube, yeah, no, this isn't entirely unpopular, but in the general sense of all Zelda gamers, yeah, it kind of is. And the reason why I love the lore so much is kind of answered in my next opinion, so let's move on. Sometimes I think I love the music and the story more than the actual game. Obviously, loving a game is a combined experience of the gameplay, the story, and the music, but what you have to understand is that what makes this different for me is I was 3 when I was first introduced into The Legend of Zelda, and I couldn't really play. I mean, I rode around on Epona sometimes, but you know, most of the game kind of scared me, Ocarina of Time, so, you know. Still, I was perfectly content just watching and taking in the story and listening to that amazing music and even some of the terrifying music because it fits so well with the story or with that specific temple or dungeon. I was perfectly fine with just watching and listening. And that holds true till this day. Like I said, obviously I love playing the actual game and it is a combined experience. You need all of those elements to be really well done. But I think there's a part of me that only enjoys it because of the music and the story. The gameplay is not as important to me. It is important, but not as important. I do love the puzzles. I already mentioned that. Stone Tower Temple. Don't make a whole dungeon a puzzle. Not for me anyway. It just... I'm also a dancer and storyteller at heart, so, you know, as a dancer and an actress, yeah, those things pique my interest just a little bit more than your average Joe. I like Skyward Sword. No, I have not actually played the game, so I totally understand if you completely discredit this as even a viable opinion. The reason I haven't played it is because I'm left-handed and don't think I could handle using the Wii remote with my right hand. I've tried. Not with that game specifically, but just in general, I can't do it. Other left-handed gamers have been able to do it and that's fine, but I can't. I specifically returned my Twilight Princess for the Wii and waited and got the Wii U one so I wouldn't have to use motion controls with my right hand. So that's why I haven't played it. And that is why Nintendo should make an HD release on the Switch that gives the option of mirrored motion controls, like they did from Twilight Princess GameCube to the Wii. Just mirror it so I can play it left-handed, or just make it so I can play it without motion controls. However, coming off of my last unpopular opinion that I just mentioned, this makes sense. Skyward Sword has a great story and wonderful music. So even though I've only ever watched it with like Let's Plays, I know I'd enjoy it. It's kind of like the experience I had with my first few Zelda games all over again. Can't really play it, but I know I'll love it. Except Link's pants. His pants just look stupid. I don't know, I just think they look stupid. Before I get to my last opinion, here are some honorable mentions. These didn't make the main list because I'm not really sure how unpopular they are. Yeah. I do not want Link to ever be a girl. Yeah, I think Linkle is stupid. I don't want there to ever be a different playable character. Link only. Link is the protagonist, he's the only one I want to play as. Yes, I will play Cadence of Hyrule, and I want to play Cadence of Hyrule. That's different. Because it's not a main Zelda game, it's a collab, so I know people are going to try and get me on that one. And I don't like the idea of multiplayer Zelda. I have no interest in ever playing Four Swords Adventures, Triforce Heroes, and especially not Hyrule Warriors. Now this last unpopular opinion was mainly unpopular during a release of a certain game, and you'll know what I'm talking about when I say it. I prefer cartoony graphics to realistic graphics when it comes to Zelda games. Don't get me wrong, I freaking love Twilight Princess. It's such a wonderful game. But when it comes to preference for graphics, yeah, I think the cell shading looks better. Wind Waker, Breath of the Wild, they just appeal to me more. The look of it just appeals to me more. And they still have dark elements to them. I've mentioned this before. Look how you defeat Ganondorf in Wind Waker. That's pretty dark. Also, let's be real. Realistic graphics don't really age as well. Even without the HD release, Wind Waker looks eons better than Twilight Princess does after 10 plus years. The cartoony art style just holds up better over time, at least the way they've done it. And yeah, to be honest, I just prefer it. And I feel like Breath of the Wild just hit the nail on the head. You know, it's cel shaded like Wind Waker, but it's like the figures are more realistic, but the coloring is, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, it was just, yes, so good. Good job, Nintendo, as always. So, what did you think of these unpopular opinions? I mean, to be honest, most of these weren't like, whoa, I can't believe you think that types of opinion. I'm pretty sure all of these, I know plenty of other Zelda gamers that agree with me 100%. But I also know plenty of people that disagree with me, so that's why I have them. But hey, if you enjoyed this video and you're new, consider subscribing. I post videos on Wednesdays that are about Zelda or Disney or Harry Potter and things in between that. I also have poetry videos on Saturdays, and sometimes I live stream so you can see how bad I am as a gamer. So if you want to join in on the fun, I recommend subscribing, notification bell, all that stuff. But that is all for today. Thank you for watching. And of course, thank you so much to my patrons like Justin, Greg, and Andrew. Y'all's support is very much appreciated. And if anyone else would like to get in on the special stuff that I offer my patrons, just go to patreon.com/thegeekapprentice. The link is in the description below.